You're tuned in to the Bleav in Arizona podcast. Hello, Bear Down Believers, and welcome into the show. We are finally here. Game day on the horizon, 24 hours out from the 2024 Arizona football season when the Wildcats kick off against New Mexico Saturday night at 7:30 at Arizona Stadium or on TV on ESPN, your Big 12 After Dark game. One more sleep. I can barely contain my excitement because this team is going to be special. I'm your host, Matt Reynolds, and thanks so much for listening to the Bleav in Arizona podcast. Coming up later on the show, we've got keys to the game. We'll break down everything about this matchup and play you some sound bites from what we heard from the players and coaches all week in the lead up to this game. We'll also bring in our guest, Ryan Tomari of the Pit Press, New Mexico alumni media, to break down the game from the UNM perspective, and we'll make our picks for the weekend, a loaded slate of Week 1 games on Labor Day weekend. Before we get to all of our content on the show, I want to remind you to please like and subscribe to the show, as well as clicking the play button on all 16 of our episodes. That's Bleav in Arizona, BLEAV in Arizona, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcasts. And a reminder that the video versions of all of these shows will be available on my YouTube page at Matt_Reynoldson. All right, we're finally here. The buildup has been 7 months since Noah Fifita, Teteroa McMillan, Jacob Manu, Dalton Johnson, Gunnar Maldonado, the Arizona Wildcats, led by their new head coach Brent Brennan, walked out onto the McHale Center floor on a Saturday when the Wildcats were facing UCLA in one of their largest conference games of the season. Those football players walked out and stole the show that day and said, "Tucson, we're here to stay." And now 7 months later, we get to see one of the most hyped Arizona football teams of all time come into this season with a new conference, with high hopes, and with a team that they're a 31-point favorite against. So the momentum train is rolling into Week 1. You should be stoked about this if you're an Arizona fan. And this could be the group of players, the group of individuals, maybe the coaching staff that changes the Arizona football program forever. Bear in mind, last year was just the fourth 10-win season in Arizona program history. The Wildcats have the nation's second longest active win streak at 7 straight games. But 7 months ago, it was complete uncertainty. It was, where does this program go after the unceremonious departure of Jedd Fisch? Where does this program go now after all this momentum? And I'm sure you've felt this before as an Arizona fan, all this momentum just ripped away. And it felt like the transfer portal was open, the floodgates would open. This little fleeting moment of success would be just that, fleeting, and it wouldn't carry over into the new Big 12. Well, what happened? Arizona lost most of its recruiting class, sure, but the core of this team stayed around. The core guys. They lost two full-time starters to Washington in the end analysis. Ephesians Prysock could also be a starter there. So we'll call it 2.5 or 3 full-time starters to Washington. They kept the core of this team together. They kept one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, Noah Fifita, under center at Arizona. And he'll likely be the starter here for 3 more years. They kept the best wide receiver in the nation in Teteroa McMillan, who turned down hundreds of thousands of dollars in NIL opportunities at other places, and he's made his money here with both internal and external NIL opportunities because T-Mac's becoming a big face on the college stage. They kept all Pac-12, first-team all Pac-12 linebacker Jacob Manu. They kept all Pac-12 right tackle Jonas Avenaya. They kept all Pac-12 left guard Wendell Moe. They kept potentially a future first-round draft pick cornerback Tacario Davis. They kept this elite secondary together all the way through. And this staff came in with a remarkable sense of humility, with a remarkable sense of knowing the moment, knowing the roster. We're not coming in here to change anything. We're even keeping the terminology the same. But we are bringing the family back to this. Brent Brennan wants to be here. He had good success at San Jose State, which is a brutally tough place to win. But what he's done since then He's not rested on his laurels. He didn't just bring everybody over from San Jose State, as we've seen other coaches do in the past when they have success at the group of 5 level. No, he swallowed any ego he might have and hired 2 assistant coaches coming off head coaching jobs, an offensive coordinator, Dino Babers, and linebackers coach, Danny Gonzalez. He brought the program back to the heart and soul of the Dick Tomey days. To the guy Brent Brennan had one of his first coaching jobs under in Dick Tomey. He brought the soul of Desert Swarm into 2024 and made it the red line, the standard, the 100% that the Wildcats are going to approach every game week, every practice, every lift, every game with. And so this could be the team that changes the course of Arizona football for the rest of history. Because going into the Big 12, having a fresh start, having this new slate for the very first time. Look, Arizona has as good a shot to win the Big 12 as any team does in this conference. Certainly among the top 4 or 5 teams. There are 5 ranked teams coming into the season in the Big 12. Arizona's right in the thick of it, coming in at number 21 in the preseason polls. And they got talent. Arizona has 3 current projected first-round draft picks by ESPN. T-Mac, as we mentioned, Jonah Savanaya, and Takario Davis. That's loaded with talent. Arizona has one of the best secondaries in the entire nation. Bringing back your core 4 starters, bringing back your guys that set the standard on the back end, and 2 of them are captains in Traden Stukes and Gunnar Maldonado. They went into the portal, not before spring, but after spring, and added some really, really strong pieces. All they lost in the running back room, they refilled it. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the honorable mention All-American last year from New Mexico, so this is a personal game from him, will be one of the starters in the Arizona backfield. Quali Conley, an all-Mountain West caliber back, transferring in from San Jose State. Kendrick Riscano, transferring in from a top 10 SEC team in Ole Miss. And oh yeah, Rayshon Speedy Luke, being one of the most electric athletes on the team and returning for this year. They've bolstered that room. They've bolstered the wide receiver room. Defensive line. It's a different story than it looked to be in spring. They've coached them up. The offensive line looks good. You got one of the best linebackers in the country. Great quarterback play. Good specialists. I mean, there is not, right now, a hole on this Arizona roster. We need to see how it comes together. There's always a learning curve in the first year, the first few games with a new coaching staff. But how many coaching staffs nationally have come in and made it a goal, made it a priority to not change anything? I don't know if I've seen that ever. And I've covered a lot of coaching changes. I don't know if I've seen that ever in any sport. And this staff had the humility to come in and say, we're not doing things differently. You know, we don't know that much about Coach Fish and his old staff, but we're not doing things differently. We like the way things are going here. We like the family atmosphere that the players have established. So we're going to lean into that. We are going to lean into our leaders. We are going to lean into Noah. We are going to lean into T-Mac, the Polynesian culture, the family, the fire that Tucson supports this team with. We're going to lean into all of that and check our ego at the door and not change anything. And that's what Arizona has established. That's what Arizona's coaching staff has established about what they want this team to be this year. And tomorrow night, we get to see it on display for the first time against New Mexico. So exciting to finally see football back in Tucson. There's still a few tickets available, so go out there and get them probably for under market value, honestly, at this point, because Arizona is a 30-point favorite for a reason. They're a massive, massive favorite over New Mexico. This is a better team than New Mexico, even though the Lobos have already played one game. So I want to go through some things with New Mexico that I think Arizona can exploit. And these are my 3 keys to this game as we go in. I think, number 1, Arizona needs to establish the run. Not just for this game, not just for the foundation of getting a win on Saturday night, getting out to a comfortable lead, but they need to establish the run to prove they can do it against Kansas State and Utah later this month. New Mexico gave up 362 rushing yards to Montana State last year. Montana State had one of the best rushing offenses in all of FCS, but it is football championship subdivision, Division I AA football. Not on the same level as Power 4 league football. So Arizona needs to prove it can establish the run. It can lean on that because we know what it has in the passing game. We know. Arizona has dudes, and Arizona has Noah Fafita. And they're going to be able to throw the ball all around the yard all year long against any Big 12 team they face. But the question is, can they run the ball against a stout Utah front seven? Can they get in the trenches and be physical against Kansas State? When West Virginia comes in here and hits you in the mouth, can they grind out possessions and not put it all on number 11's shoulders? Can they go to UCF and TCU and win in the trenches, and then when they're up 7 late, do a 4-minute drill to run the ball and close out the game and not need to put it in the air to win the game? That's the question. That's what is established by this first game against New Mexico. So Arizona needs to run the ball first and foremost. The second thing I want to see from Arizona, the second key to this game for the Wildcats, is establishing a consistent pass rush. And I think this is maybe lower down the list than the importance of establishing the run. But I think Arizona needs to prove that it can get consistent pass rush because outside of Justin Flo, there's really just a lot of question marks with this pass rush. Now, guys like Trey Smith, Tai Uyunglele, Isaiah Johnson have all had strong fall camps from a pass rush standpoint. You can also pass rush from the inside linebacker position. Manu can do that as effectively as anybody, but, Tay Brown, Kamuela Kayahue, those guys need to prove that they can get in the backfield and take down the quarterback. And it'll be a unique and interesting proposition in this first game because Devin Dampier, the New Mexico quarterback who hails from Scottsdale Saguaro High School, is a mobile quarterback. So we're going to get a good look at what Arizona is doing on defense from a spy standpoint with a mobile quarterback and also just getting after the guy. I think it's going to be less important in the overall scheme of things to find a pass rush in this game because I think Arizona's secondary will be so strong. But as we saw last night in the Colorado game, and Colorado comes in here on October 19th, as we saw last night in that game, the Buffaloes have athletes that can hurt you. Kansas State and Utah have athletes that can hurt you. KU, who they may see in a conference title game, definitely quarterback and athletes that can hurt you. So it comes down to being able to get home. You have to have a relentless pass rush to take some of the pressure off of this elite secondary because you can't cover forever. Even the best DBs in the NFL can't cover for 10 seconds. Plays break down, routes break off. People make plays. Limiting those big plays comes down to having an effective pass rush. I think that's what Arizona needs to do. And my third key to this game is the Wildcats winning the turnover battle. And I'm not talking about, you take it away 3 times, give it away 2. Arizona needs to convincingly win the turnover battle in this game. Because if you show turnover issues early in the season, other teams will see that on tape and smell blood in the water. Same goes for special teams mistakes. They'll circle you on the film. They'll put a red dot on your forehead and say, this is how we attack these guys. We can punch the ball out on this running back. We can get in a quarterback's face and force him to throw it this way. And when he does that, it flutters. We can crash into the up man on punt coverage and he'll go flying backward and we can make something happen. We can block kicks. We can do this. We can be opportunistic. So Arizona needs to show teams that it'll make you pay for being opportunistic. That comes down to taking care of the football, not putting it on the ground. Noah Fafita has to make great decisions all night long. I think the turnover battle, if Arizona wins it and wins it handily and shows on defense that it can take the ball away, snag those interceptions, looking at you, Takario Davis, one of the best cornerbacks in the nation that dropped more picks than he made last year, Arizona needs to prove that it can be a takeaway team and it is not going to give you turnovers. because the better things you put on film in week one, the more you give NAU first to think about, but the more you give K-State to think about on a 6-day prep for a Friday night game on September 13th. Look, Arizona is heavily favored in this game. Arizona will be heavily favored against NAU. I'm not saying anything earth-shattering to think that the U of A should win both of those games handily, probably by at least 4 touchdowns in each. But this is about building good habits, building synergy, and putting the product on the field that you want to show against Kansas State and Utah. Because that's a huge, huge mark to the season. And Arizona knows what's ahead of it. Arizona knows what opportunity lies here in this wide open Big 12. And if it can get through September 4-0, they're a legitimate playoff contender, not just from a Big 12 standpoint, but from an at-large standpoint. And that is huge in the grand scheme of things. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this could be a program-changing year for Arizona athletics. If you win the Big 12, you have a bye into the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. And if you do, considering where everybody stacks up, traditional bowl tie-ins, we could be looking at a Big 12 champion Arizona Wildcats football team playing in a quarterfinal playoff game at the Fiesta Bowl, State Farm Stadium in Glendale. You know how many U of A fans would show up there for a playoff quarterfinal? I know Boise State, outdrew some Arizona fans back in the BCS days, but this isn't the BCS days. You're fighting for a national championship. And if Arizona has an essential home game in the playoff quarterfinal, it would depend on the matchup. But I put the Wildcats up against just about anybody in the nation in that setting. So much to be excited about. And it all starts tomorrow night. New Mexico coming in here at 7:30 p.m. It's a late game window. You'll get some eyeballs on ESPN. Should be a fun one. And then next week, week 2 against NAU, also a 7:30 kickoff. That one on ESPN Plus. But the season is here. We're excited. There's so much to talk about. And coming up next, I'll bring in Ryan Tomari of the Pitt Press, that's New Mexico alumni media, as we discuss things from a New Mexico perspective, discuss our thoughts on college football altogether, and we'll get to my picks a little bit later on. But coming up next, Ryan Tomari of the Pitt Press. As we continue our preview of Arizona versus New Mexico in the season opener, I want to welcome in Ryan Tomari, the Lobos expert covering New Mexico for the Pitt Press, New Mexico alumni media over on YouTube. And Ryan, this is a game where we've been really excited for it on our end, I think, here in Tucson for a long time because it represents the season opener. But I am so jealous of you guys in Albuquerque because you got a week before this, we got a week of football before this. What was the fanfare last week? And just not having to wait for 8:31 like the rest of us.
Jealousy is a big word there because it's 90 degrees in Albuquerque, New Mexico on August 24th. No, it was cool. It was really nice considering what the UNM football program has gone over the last 15, 16 years, for them to get some national recognition. Obviously it didn't play in their favor, but if you watch the game on TV, the east side of the stands were a majority of, and I don't want to disrespect any Montana State's colors, navy and gold, or navy blue and gold. UNM is such and you're in Tucson, UNM is such the fan base is frugal, and to try to get people out to a stadium that's hard to get into on a Saturday at 2:00 in August. Now it wasn't as hot. The winds did pick up in the fourth quarter if you watch the game.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a little bit of a weird complex here, and the joke is made, and I made the joke leading up to the Montana State game. that if they lost to Montana State, the age-old question would be, when does Lobo basketball start? So it was even a week earlier in August. But to answer your question, I mean, it was cool to be there. It was cool to see. There was, if you are a true Lobo fan, there's a lot of buzz because of Bronco Mendenhall. The game didn't end up as Lobo fan or a Bronco Mendenhall or the team wanted. With all that negativity, there were some positives. I mean, you saw a team score twice on defense. Try to find me the last time a team scored twice on defense and lost.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm a big college football fan, and I'm displaced by being a University of New Mexico alumni and having two parents that grew up outside of New Brunswick, Piscataway, New Jersey, with Rutgers
Mm.
and the birthplace of college football. My dad got his master's there, but I'm rambling, so I feel like I've been displaced. I wish I would have went to an SEC school. I wish I would have pursued that some 20 years ago in high school. I hope that answered your question.
Of course it did. The rambling is the best about college football because we can go in 50 different directions and you still got about 80 FBS teams to get to at that point, which makes it so much fun.
No, it is a
Well,
beautiful.
last week, I mean, you
It's a
mentioned
beautiful
you
thing.
mentioned the challenges. Yeah, you mentioned the challenges getting into the game that might have played a part in the fans, getting in late. The announcers actually referenced that on the broadcast, saying, I guess New Mexico fans knew they were a 2-touchdown underdog to Montana State, and then found out they had the lead, and then streamed in from the tailgates. So a little bit unique there. But I think before we delve into the Arizona and New Mexico connections, because there's plenty of them, what was kind of the feeling around last week's game? Did New Mexico show you anything, even in a loss, because they had the game won? It felt like. Did they show you? Did they surprise you in getting out to that significant lead against an FCS power?
This is such a catch-22 game to talk
Mhm.
about. As I mentioned earlier, and I'm not trying to repeat myself, they scored first on defense. So this was a team last year
Right.
under Danny Gonzalez, who is a friend of our show. He's from Albuquerque. I make another terrible joke, Google gobble, Google gobble. He's one of us. He went to high school in the north part of Albuquerque. He played with Brian Urlacher at UNM in the late 90s. I loved him. So it was sad to see him go. He was very candid in his answers. Um, you bring in Bronco Mendenhall, who is I was a print guy. Sorry, I'm not used to being on camera, even though I host the show. And here I am. Anyway, Bronco Mendenhall was a defensive coordinator here in the late 90s when Rocky Long took over. He's familiar with the area, he's familiar with the program. If any of your listeners are familiar with Bronco Mendenhall, I mean, he kind of saved BYU in the mid 2000s. He took them
Right.
to, I think, a bowl game every year. He won at Virginia, which was not something that had been done. So when I mention those things, he's a very good coach, and he's more reserved. And from my end, from being a member of the media, um, he's very standoffish. He talks like this. But the guy knows football. And again, not to ramble, what he did at Virginia hadn't been done in a million years. He beat Florida State and Virginia Tech both in 2019. He got them to an ACC title game, and he got them to an Orange Bowl. Those words are truly
Mhm.
unspoken. To answer your question, what did I take away from the game? Again, this is a team that did not hit the quarterback last year. They did that immediately. Again, you can make a reference to
Right.
the level of competition, although I think Montana State's probably very, very it could probably compete at the FBS level, probably go 7-5 or something like that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
the quarterback is Devin Dampier. He is from Scottsdale, I believe. I know it's the Phoenix area.
Yep,
I
Scottsdale
think
Saguaro High School.
that's it. Yeah. And he is probably a hidden gem in the group of five as far as quarterbacks go. He's a sophomore. I've had the pleasure of talking to him once or twice. Calm, cool, and collect. For a 20-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, calm, cool, and collected. He's a leader. His team loves him. I know those are all the cliche things. If you watch the game against Montana State, they lined up in this power formation, like three tight ends, a fullback, which was unheard of in a running back. They were supposed to run the ball. He called a bootleg. He ran out. Nobody caught him. He scored from like 30 or 25, 30 yards out. He's positive. the wide receiving core is talented, and their drop percentage is like 6 or 7%, and they drop two. Now, this is the negative. They drop two crucial passes
Hmm.
in late in the game. Caleb Medford and Luke Wysong. Luke Wysong, his uncle played here. His dad played at UNM. His uncle is a friend of our show. He's kind of our, token uh, weekly guest now talking UNM football. Luke Wysong is somebody who is not a big guy. Speedster, was phenomenal here at Cleveland High School, which is in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. It's a suburb of Albuquerque. And their facilities, since it's a fairly new high school, since they built it, it is something that you would probably find in West Texas or Texas. Um, they just breed athletes, and he is a speedster. He had suffered from injuries. He's a junior redshirt. He had suffered from injuries. He had 6 catches for 90 some yards. He had a phenomenal 53 yarder where he turned his body. Dampier hit the ball there. It hit him in his hands down the field. It was a great play. It was for somebody who had that amount of injuries and turmoil early in his career and his hometown team, essentially, to see him bounce back. That was great. Um, and the running backs, they didn't use Andrew Henry, who was supposedly the number one, but they've got Eli Sanders. They've got another guy, Javen Jacobs, same high school, I believe. He played with Dampier. So those are the positives to take away. Um, this is a football program that won 16 games in 2015 and combined 2015 and 2016. They have won 19 from 2017 on, and that includes
Oh,
last week. When I was at UNM, we saw the Rocky era, long era from the late, and you'll see where I'm going with this, from the late 90s to the mid 2000s. I believe Rocky Long is still the only football coach in college football history, at least at the FBS level or D1 level, that added a win every year he was there. So it was 3 wins, 4
mm.
wins, 5 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins. And if you look back in time, giving you a history lesson in UNM football, 2007 is probably one of the best years ever, as well as 2016 under Bob Davie. With that rambling and that speed talking that I always do, and I know you just met me, there's a lot of hard things to find positive within this program. But those are the things that I saw last Saturday.
Well, before we get into this matchup, I do want to kind of piggyback off you there because I am a college football history nerd. I'm a college football scheme junkie, and Rocky Long is widely known for our audience. Rocky Long is widely known as the father of the 3-3-5 defense, which is now gaining steam in both college football and the NFL as you put 5 defensive backs on the field, and you can have different, more creative, unique ways to load the box, to stop the run. It's a gap scheme defensively. Arizona runs a 4-2-5. And so Dwayne Aquina actually learned under Rocky Long for part of his career. I mean, look, Dwayne Aquina, the Arizona defensive coordinator, has been in this business for 42 years. Who hasn't he learned from? But he
Right.
still talks about Rocky Long, as a lot of the guys from the coaching tree do. So there's a lot of history that rolls through Albuquerque, a lot of history that rolls through UNM, and now a lot of history that rolls between Arizona and New Mexico. Obviously, former WAC foes back in the 70s. They used to play for the rifle trophy that has since been, done away with. But
Thank you.
now it's a season
Th-
opener.
thank you for mentioning. Thank you for mentioning that.
I did read it this week for the first time. So there's a lot of history there. There is, but also recent history. Last year's New Mexico coach, Danny Gonzalez, you mentioned him, is now Arizona's linebackers and special teams coach. New Mexico's starting running back from last year, Corey Krosky Merritt, is now Arizona's starting running back. So what do you make of the connections between these two teams running in?
I think it's going to Ben Wysong, who I was mentioning is Luke's uncle that I was talking about earlier. Again, played linebacker and Lobo back. Talking about the 3-3-5, and I know that Arizona is not in the Pac-12 anymore, but Rocky Long, when he went to San Diego State, was deemed the Pac-12 killer. So there you go. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt was somebody who they had high hopes on in fall camp, and we had heard about him, and his nickname's Bill because he looked like little Bill from the Cosby Show, the Bill Cosby Show, and Nick Jr. I can't believe and I have a 7-year-old. I can't believe I know all this, and I'm starting to show my age, but he looked like him, so they call him Bill, but it's Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, or I like to JCM. But he is somebody that I think was a diamond in the rough that transferred from North Alabama last year. And the Lobo offense under Danny Gonzalez, he was, I throw out the 2020 season. He was hired in December of 2019. They are the only team in college football history to not play a home game in their home state. They were moved to Las Vegas during the height of COVID. They
Mm,
played at Sam Boyd, which I Bleav no longer exists, and they were set up in a weight room at a hotel. I mean, I heard stories about it last year, and I didn't realize the extent of it. They got a really, bad hand, and I think that year should have been a mulligan for Danny Gonzalez. Obviously, Eddie Nunez, the athletic director, who's now within the last 2 weeks the athletic director at the University of Houston. Him and his the deputy AD Dave Williams last year didn't see that fit, and they fired Danny Gonzalez. Um, why I mentioned that is because the Danny Gonzalez era, 2021 and 2022, the defense was pretty good. The offense was just not subpar. It was horrendous. They couldn't get off the
mm.
field. They put the defense in a lot of bad positions, and there was only so much you can do on a short field when you turn over the ball or you're constantly punting and you're constantly having 3-and-outs. So you thought, oh, the defense will be okay last year. And they brought in Bryant Vincent, who's now the head coach at the University of Louisiana Monroe, who got a win last night. I know that doesn't really help continuity recording, but he got a win on Thursday night to start the college football season. And the offense was electric and led by the way of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who
Mhm.
I should have brought up his stats, but was honorable mention All-American. And when you hear All-American at UNM for football, you're like, wait, what? He's a phenomenal running back. And I knew
Yeah.
that right away in their first game against at Texas A&M last year. They were down a couple scores early and they kind of clawed their way back in. And Krosky-Merritt and UNM's offensive line was one of their strengths last year, along with Bill. He made a phenomenal 30, 40-yard run where he made a cut, dash towards the sideline. It looked like an NFL play, which again, when you see that with UNM football, it stands out. He is a special player. I think, and I know there was he went to U of A and then he was going to Washington, then he went to Ole Miss, then he was back at U of A. I will tell this to Arizona fans, they have found themselves a diamond in the rough and a gem. He is a phenomenal running back. He's pro talent. I think he's probably a second or third round draft pick. Great kid.
Wow.
He loved Danny Gonzalez. And I think that is probably why he found himself at U of A because of Danny Gonzalez. But now where it gets interesting is two things. You have some of the former players, which aren't many left over, that are still probably friends with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. So how are they going to adapt to playing him? Do they know something that U of A doesn't, or will it be the same old Lobos? As far as Danny Gonzalez goes, again, I mentioned he is a local kid, Albuquerque High School, Valley High School. He played special teams during the late 90s. He played in the secondary and he played with Brian Urlacher because around these parts, this isn't, Urlacher's a big name.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
there's that kind of connection. The sad thing about Danny Gonzalez is he bled, he ate, slept, and breathed UNM football. He was a proud alumni and he was a proud UNM football alumni. He
Yeah, he
tried to go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're good. Go, keep going. I like that.
Yeah, no, he lived. I lost my train of thought there. That's my fault. To see him, to learn that he got fired. And I'm someone who's very critical of UNM and UNM's athletic department, despite what my degree that you can't see over there says. Um, I felt really bad for him when he got fired. He tried to build up the program. He moved the band to the north end zone. He moved the student section to the north end zone. He was trying to do different things with the uniforms. He was trying to make UNM a destination. It just didn't pan out on the field. And I think it boiled down to coaching. And I'll end it on this. For as much as I love Danny Gonzalez, UNM was incredibly undisciplined last year. And I can't remember the stat if they were first or second in total penalties. They led the country in penalties, or were either tied with what Primetime was doing up in Boulder. They had just south of 12 penalties a game, and this stat is bonkers because they went 4-8 last year. If they are probably 6, 7, or 8 penalties away from being 6-6. So there's that connection. I don't know how Danny Gonzalez is going to feel on Saturday. I've thought about that. We've talked about it a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be good riddance or he wants to get this game over with. I do not
Mhm.
know, but I appreciated his time at UNM. There was nobody as far as character wise that I had met at UNM. The listeners aren't going to care. I covered Mike Loxley, who's the head coach at Maryland. And it
Yep.
was off-field incident after off-field incident after off-field incident. And with all of that packed in there, you won 3 games in 3 years from 2009 to 2011. He completely destroyed the program, and I describe it like an extinction level event where the asteroid hit the planet because that's what he did to UNM football.
Yeah, Danny has really shown us a level of transparency that maybe you rarely see from assistant coaches here. You know, he's the only assistant coach that I cover that I've ever covered that starts his press conferences with an opening statement, which I think is funny. I think is endearing. You know, the dude is a head coach through and through, and he's one of several pieces on this Arizona staff that has come together with a lot of experience under Brent Brennan. Obviously, Brennan had a lot of success at San Jose State, which is, as we've seen, a very hard place to win. But he's assembled this all-star staff, and he kept the roster together. That was the biggest thing coming into this offseason, was keeping this star-studded roster, including Noah Fafita, Teteroa McMillan, Takario Davis, Jacob Manu, all those guys together. So from your perspective, as you're looking ahead to this game, what do you see with Arizona? Because I think people here are mixed on whether they see a team that is bringing back all the important pieces from last year and hopefully continuing the nation's second longest winning streak at 7 games, or they see a new coaching staff and some question marks on the roster, like defensive line and left tackle, where it could create more cracks in the foundation this year. What do you see from Arizona going into this game?
Well, I want to thank Arizona for coming back and covering for me in the Alamo Bowl. Noah Fafita is phenomenal. No, Noah, yeah, that game. I had the flu over the holidays, so that's what I did. Is watched college football and gambled, and I was like, man, I need to get sick all the time because I got on a heater. Anyway, that's not here nor there. Um, Arizona caught my attention late in the season because they played pretty damn good defense. I know they get
Yeah,
Jacob Manu back. I will say this, and I'm not Arizona, this team between and I butcher his first name all the time, so it's just T-Mac, it's McMillan.
that's fine.
Um, yeah, I know that he goes by I think he shortens it, but every time I look at it, I'm like, I can't pronounce it. I mean, no disrespect, which probably means I'm disrespecting him. But anyway,
Everybody nationally will
he
know who you're talking about here in a couple weeks.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, number 4 in navy blue. He is I mean, McMillan is a first round draft pick for sure. He's
mhm,
got the buy. I don't know how speaking strictly to this game, I don't know how UNM is going to cover him at
right.
all. Noah Fafita is phenomenal. I mean, you look at him, he's a little guy, but somebody mentioned this on we had a couple U of A people on our, I think, Wildcat 2.0 radio, not to plug another outlet, but they said something for me, which was that he had a phenomenal deep ball. And I was watching highlights and I remember watching the Alamo Bowl and I was like, damn, this kid's got a rocket.
Yeah,
He's probably, next year, he's probably a second or third round draft. I sound like I work in the NFL. I'm like, hey, this guy's a second. I sound like Mel Kiper, Count Chocula, Mel Kiper Jr. But um, I, I don't, I know U of A isn't predominantly known as a not football school, but producing decent football teams.
mhm,
I think this Arizona team is something to watch out for because I think Dino Babbers, Dwayne Aquina, Danny Gonzalez, Brett Brennan, I met last year at Mountain West Conference Football Media Days. And I'll be honest, at the time, I didn't know much about him. And the San Jose State SID came up to me and he was like, hey, you want to talk to Coach Brennan? I was like, I don't know what to ask him. Okay, come on over. And I knew that they had a couple of, I can't remember the quarterback's name, but he was preseason Mountain West Conference Player of the Year going into 2023. He Brennan, I couldn't believe it. It wasn't like a coach. He was like an insurance salesman or like a high school guidance counselor. He was so pleasant to talk to and calm and cool and collected. And he was very candid. And then side note, I got to talk to Craig Ball and he was like expletive NIL, but
I love Craig.
it, yeah, Craig Ball was fantastic. I was really sad he retired, but Brett Brennan, I think I don't, I've been to Tucson once or twice. I saw UNM beat U of A back in when I was in college. And I, I, I don't know. Brett Brennan is he's a California guy. He went to UCLA. I think he's from Northern California, but he went to UCLA. He's kind of got that Southern California demeanor, which from somebody who was raised in central New Jersey doesn't understand. But I think he was I think he was phenomenal to talk to. And offensively, he's a brilliant mind. I don't care if you're at San Jose State. They scored over 31 points a game, average over 31 points a game, I think in his last 5 seasons. They came, and I know him and Danny are good friends, but I know that he came in, that they came in here last year against San Jose State and it was like 14-7 at half, and they exploded for 38 points in the second half. And they went on
Yeah.
this tear. They beat UNLV in Vegas. I mean, offensive, when you give somebody who's offensive minded like that and doing that at the group of 5 level, and now you have arguably maybe the best wide receiver QB tandem in the country, I expect big things from this Arizona team. I expect them to, I sound crazy trying to tell Arizona fan this. I truly believe you have nothing to worry about Saturday night at 7:30 local time on ESPN and at Arizona Stadium. I think it's going to be fireworks galore for the Arizona offense, because I just saw a second and third string FCS duo of running backs completely annihilate the UNM secondary. So I think that answered your question again. I'm sorry I'm asking that again.
No, I love it, and I like what you mentioned about Brent Brennan because I think one of the biggest questions that I have had all the way through for not just Brent but his assistant coaches is what makes you a football expert? Because we know the biggest thing that he has underscored here is staying consistent with the message. The biggest thing that he has underscored here is the family culture, being a resource for the players, being, a true put your arms around your guy. Because he has shown that by keeping this family together, by keeping the roster together, by keeping the guys that want to be in Tucson, he's shown his ability to be a culture leader. But I want to know, as someone who had covered the NFL, what makes him a football expert. So you mentioned the offense last year and San Jose State and what they were able to do. And I think that's really illuminating. And I think it's especially a credit to him that even with the offensive acumen that he possesses himself, he didn't just bring over the whole staff from San Jose State. And he had the humility to go and hire 2 guys coming off head coaching jobs. That's hard to do if you have an ego because you don't want loud voices in that room, especially if you're a first-time head coach at the Power 5 level. Feels like Brent Brennan just let that ride and said, okay, I'm going to surround myself with the best coaches that I can. Bring in guys that have some connection to Tucson, some connection to the old Dick Tomey era. And if they've been head coaches, great. More knowledge in my room, more experience in my room. So I really like that you mentioned that because it gives us a window into what Brent Brennan is and will be as a head coach at Arizona. All right, as we transition to Saturday night at 7:30, you mentioned it a little bit. It's about a 30-point line coming into this game. But what are some of your specific keys to this game, and then throw in a prediction as well?
Obviously, it's the age-old thing, and I went on another Arizona podcast last night and said this. Look, you're looking at a New York Football Giants fan. I saw a team win 2 Super Bowls by putting quarterbacks on their asses.
Mm-hmm.
UNM needs to hit Fafita. I don't know how. They got to figure it out unless the game plan is we run the ball with the running back by committee led by Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think the keys of the game are trying to figure out how to stop the run because it was horrendous last week against Montana State, 362 total yards on the ground, and they gave up 220 yards in the fourth quarter total.
Hmm. Mhm.
and a majority of that was running. Um, they got gashed in the fourth quarter, and I think Montana State had them right where they wanted because they threw early, and then they were like they were toying with UNM, which is crazy. I don't know how you stop McMillan, and the legendary thing for UNM over the last 25 years, 30 years was people in the secondary. Glover Quinn, Brian Urlacher was not a linebacker here. He returned punts and was in the secondary. I can list guys that I know: Jake Bowe, Clint McPeak. God, the list goes on and on. Blake Lyjon. No names I know your audience isn't gonna know, but these were New Mexico guys that came here and played here for 4 or 5 years because they love Rocky Long. They built something, but the secondary was they hit, going to another NFL reference, it's the Patriots against the Rams. They punched the greatest show on turf in the face. I think that is something that UNM is going to have to do. I know that the front seven is a concern for U of A. Devin Dampier might have an advantage there. They do have some talent on offense. I will say that I think the wide receivers and the uh, running backs, Eli Sanders transferred from Iowa State, Caleb Medford, Luke Wysong, Sean Miller transferred from. He came from a P4, P5 school. I forget where, but they've got some talent there, so that might be their strength. Um, I've seen the line at 31 and a half. I've seen this song and dance before. If I were a gambling man, which I am, I'm taking Arizona 31 and a half. And I'm sure people, U of A fans, are like, well, we don't know what to expect. And it's like this whole advantage thing. Oh, UNM has played. This is a mulligan year for Bronco Mendenhall.
Mhm.
And I do like a lot of these kids on this team. I'm not talking, what. I just calls it as I sees it. I don't think this is going to end pretty for UNM. And to give U of A fans some context, UNM lost to Montana State. They go to Arizona, they get a bye week, then they go to Auburn, then they come back and they play Fresno State. Uh, the thing, yeah,
Brutal
the thing,
September.
yeah, brutal. And they beat Fresno in Fresno last year. So Fresno comes here, and you've got Mikey Keene, you've got Malik Sherrod. I mean, I think I said his, I know it's Sherrod. I forgot his, I hope it's Malik Sherrod. I'm trying to think of drawing a blank on his first name. Those guys were on that team. That's Danny Gonzalez's last win at UNM. They probably haven't forgotten. So I don't know what to expect out of New Mexico State because I loved Jerry Kill, not because they were a covering machine for me, but he was in your face, expletive you. I saw him get a penalty. I saw a player get a penalty late in the game on a game winning play that just backed NMSU up, and all they had to do was kneel. I think it was against Louisiana Tech, and Jerry Kill walked up and yelled at him. And if you saw the Jerry Kill press conference after the New Mexico Bowl last year, that was right in my face, which was fantastic. But I went off on a tangent there. They go to New Mexico State. I don't know what to expect out of Tony Sanchez in New Mexico State. So it's the Temptations. It's the same old song. That that first loss is demoralizing with this schedule. I've heard spirits are high this week, and you want to go into every game and believing that you're win, but I just think that Arizona is way too talented
Mhm.
with Fafita, McMillan, the running backs. And I know you've got that, I can't think of his name, Lamias Craig. They've
Lamonius
got
Craig,
people
yes.
that have Lamonius Craig. You've got guys that complement McMillan, and I think the tight end's pretty good. It, I can't if I had more disposable income, I'd put more on it on U of A than at 31 and a half because I think it's going to be a bloodbath, and it could be bad by halftime. What I saw that the defense, we jokingly on our show simulated the game yesterday on EA College Football 25, and it was 52-17. And Ja'Cory
Wow.
Krosky Merritt was the player of the game with 170 some yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's Lobo football in a nutshell, throwing it at the Lobo fans. But I answer that question for once being on point here. I expect Arizona big. I expect them to roll. I don't think U of A fans should worry. I'm worried about what Utah in a week or two, and I don't. Um, I don't. I think this is going to be bad by midway through the second quarter.
Well, you got me in a picks mood now. So when we come back on the show, I'll make my picks for a full weekend slate of games. Finally, 8:31 is here. College football is back. But Ryan Tomari from the Pitt Press, New Mexico Alumni Media on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see how things go when they strap it up tomorrow.
I appreciate you letting me come on your show and ramble. It was good talking to you, man. Enjoy college football this weekend.
You too. Thanks so much to Ryan for joining the show. Before we get to my picks and getting the flavor of looking ahead to the weekend, I want to discuss what we heard this week from the coaches and players. The first announcement being the captains were named. And it's really no surprise. Even Coach Brent Brennan said it was a landslide in favor of captains voting. So your 6 are 3 on offense. You've got Noah Fifita, your starting quarterback, and then offensive lineman Josh Baker and Jonah Savanaya. On defense, no surprise either, 3 of your best leaders in Jacob Manu, Traden Stukes, and Gunnar Maldonado. So 6 Arizona Wildcats, 3 on offense, 3 on defense, will wear the captain's C on their chest this year, and it's clear this team has really strong leadership. Here's what Brent Brennan had to say about the captain voting.
I just feel like there's such a clear, kind of a clear leadership on this team, and I think the players feel it, and the team voting was a virtual landslide, so it's good. Some of those guys were here for like the long haul, so that that was forged through the fire, so to speak, of like not having success and struggling and working together and keep pushing, and then having the success they had last year. And then I also think it has a lot to do with the guys that are our best players also, or our highest profile players are also like kind of the best team guys on our team. If you're thinking about Fifita or Gunnar or Stukes or, Jacob Manu or T-Mac, like that's, Baker, like those guys have great awareness of the importance of them keeping everyone together and continuing to lean into that brotherhood.
Let's play some sound from one of those captains, Jacob Manu, saying that this defense is going to be special because they've had the opportunity to go against Arizona's offense in fall camp. I asked the question, and Manu delivered with this great soundbite as Arizona kind of looks ahead to this season and what it can be balance-wise on both sides of the ball.
I mean, it's big for us. I feel like we're a top defense in the country, and I feel like we're going to get to top offense in the country. So each day it's not like one person dominating. It goes back and forth all practice. So I feel like it's good for the team.
And, of course, quarterback Noah Fifita bringing it sort of full circle from the last 7 months and what this means to him as the starting quarterback of this team, preparing all the way through spring ball, preparing all the way through summer conditioning, fall camp, and now game day is finally here. This is a full circle moment for the sophomore quarterback who talks like a seasoned veteran. You would not know it's his first fall camp as Arizona's full-time starter.
It's super exciting. We're finally here. But, I mean, I think through all of the things that we had to go through as a team, we're closer than we've ever been. You talk about the culture, and it's continued to grow. So I'm real excited to be able to finally play with these guys, be able to just compete at the highest level, and we're looking forward to just taking this 1 week at a time.
Of course, 2 of those captains hailing from Arizona's secondary in Traden Stukes and Gunnar Maldonado. And Dwayne Aquina, you could just listen to him talk football all day. Of course, he's exciting to listen to, has a lot of excitement for this Arizona team, and he has coached some elite secondaries during his time in college football. I don't think I'm going too far to say this may be one of the best, and it's clear he's very excited about this unit and the leadership it possesses as well.
So I really thought by the end of the year our secondary was really playing well, and and then what was nice is the heart of it. Colt Dalton's Stukes, Gunnar, and Bobo have not stood still. They continue to work to grow their game, and I always talk about a standard. And for me, you have to coach the best players the hardest, because they've never finished. I don't care if you become a 10-year pro, you're still going to learn in this game. This game is always moving forward. So having the ability to have really good players that have had some success is yet still allowing you to coach them hard, because as they go, the room chases them, because they all want to be the starter, and I've had that since I was here the first time, And so they've really raised the level of the room, which has improved the younger players to chase them. And they've really all bought into the intellectual side of the game. Me moving to offense, where I had my my heels in the ground with Dick, but he kept wanting me to move. But now I teach from an offensive perspective, so it's a class. So we understand offensive theory as much as anything, and they've really bought into the mental side of the game. And now that's what Bobo, many times corners don't buy into that. They've just been great athletes. Tell me what to do, safeties, where I say, you don't want your paycheck in their mouth. You want to know what to do. So if you are blessed to go to the Senior Bowl or to get to the Combine where you have that 15-minute interview, that's a job interview. You want to be able to express offensive theory about how routes relate, how this release can tell you what this guy is doing. And so it's wonderful that they've bought into that. And the older guys are the ones that have really set the example.
And as we wrap up this little soundbite segment, one more from Brent Brennan, because game day is almost here. Finally, we made it to this point, and it's worth getting excited about.
It's just exciting. I'm so fired up for these players and for this team and our fans. It's just to finally get to game day. It's obviously been a lot the last 7 months, in kind of the lives of Arizona football. So we're just excited to play. It's a lot of fun. Great energy at practice this week, so we're looking forward to it.
All right, it's game week, and we've finally got some games to pick on the schedule. I'm excited. A full slate of college football on Saturday, games on Sunday and Monday as well. It is Labor Day weekend, and college football is back. So let's roll through the entire Big 12 slate. And we did see 4 games involving Big 12 teams last night. There's also another one tonight with TCU visiting Stanford. So we'll stay away from the weekday ones. This is only college football Saturday. Time to give out some picks. The first matchup, big noon kickoff in Morgantown. Fox will be there. Penn State and West Virginia. This is an exciting one because West Virginia overachieved on expectations last year, and now they've got a lot coming back to this team. I think Neil Brown has a solid squad. Arizona will see them on October 26th. But this Penn State team is really, really good. New offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki comes in from Kansas. Drew Aller, his second year as the starting quarterback there. We know their defense, led by Abdul Carter, is going to be stellar all the way throughout the season. Even with the raucous environment in Morgantown, even with the fanfare around this, I have a hard time seeing West Virginia match up to Penn State from a trenches and talent standpoint. I'm laying Penn State minus the 7.5 points here as a favorite in that game. All right, Oklahoma State hosting FCS Power South Dakota State. Why do teams keep scheduling North Dakota State and South Dakota State and Montana State and these FCS powerhouses? It does you no favors. But number 17 Oklahoma State coming in as a 10-point favorite against the Jackrabbits, SDSU. Look, I think SDSU, with their trenches experience in FCS, will sell out to stop the run. They'll sell out to stop Ollie Gordon, who was an All-American candidate last year for Oklahoma State. I think this will come down to Alan Bowman being able to push the ball down the field. I don't see that happening, but I think Oklahoma State has a really good team. They bring a lot back. They bring back a great offensive line. Look, I think this is going to be a slugfest. I think it's going to be a back and forth affair. Right now, and this may be a hot take, but give me under 53.5 points. I think Oklahoma State's going to win this game. I would stay the absolute heck away from the 10-point spread in favor of the Cowboys. But that under 53.5 looks to be pretty good because I think this is going to be a rock fight in Stillwater. And I think SDSU can really hold down this Oklahoma State offense if it stops the run. Cincinnati hosting Towson. That's an FCS opponent. Cincinnati is in maybe one of the lesser talked about Big 12 teams, but I think that this is a game they should win. They should win going away. 31.5 points is a pretty big spread. I might take Towson plus the points there, but Cincinnati's got to get off the ground with a win there, and it's an overmatched opponent, so it should have no problem doing that. North Dakota at Iowa State. I'm really high on this Iowa State team. I think Rocco Becht is a very good starting quarterback. I think Matt Campbell is one heck of a coach. Iowa State will be interesting all the way through this year. Right now, I have them slotted as about the 6th best Big 12 team. You could slot West Virginia there if you want. Some people are delusional enough to slot Colorado there. Colorado is not that. But I think Iowa State, especially with that defense, is going to be really good. They're a 28.5-point favorite at home against North Dakota. That kickoff is 12:30 Arizona time over on FS1. I like Iowa State comfortably covering that 28.5 against an FCS foe. Kansas State at home against UT Martin, and Martin also an FCS school out of Tennessee. And K-State is going to run the football, and we're going to see our first full-time look at Avery Johnson as the Wildcats starting quarterback. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Arizona will see them in week 3. So if you want to take a look at Kansas State, that game on ESPN Plus starting at 4 o'clock Arizona time, the Kitties should roll 38. Their 37-point favorite seems a little small in this one. We know how good of a coach Chris Kleiman is. I think K-State runs away with this one in blowout fashion. Here's an interesting one. Tarleton State, which is considered one of the best teams at the FCS level, beat McNeese last week in a week 0 game. They're going up against Baylor, and Baylor should be better this year. They got quarterback transfer from Toledo. I like this Baylor team. I think Dave Aranda is a pretty good coach, but 27.5 against an FCS powerhouse is a lot. I see this one being maybe a little bit more of a rock fight. We'll see what Baylor can do with all of its new pieces, but not super high on this Baylor team. And Tarleton State, especially being in state with Texas, is going to put up quite a fight in Waco. I don't see this being, a 4-quarter game by any means, but 27.5 is a pretty big number for Baylor to be laying in this one. I'll take Tarleton State plus the points. UNLV at Houston. This one's an interesting one. UNLV was a viable team in the Mountain West last year. Houston expected to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12. The Cougars are a 3-point favorite at home. So if you want to just lay a little money line bet, it might be good to sprinkle UNLV. Personally, I'd stay away from this one. I think that Houston knows that it has to get its wins in non-conference play. I think it's been laser focused on UNLV. It's a tough opponent to start off with, especially an opponent that's been pretty strong in Mountain West play as of late. I really think, though, Houston knows it has to come in, knows it has to get a win at home to start this thing off. I'll take Houston as a squeaker. If you can take the minus on the money line there, I would just take the favorite, Houston, at home. It looks like it could be a 3-point game or less, so I wouldn't even touch the 3. That's how close I think this game is going to be. Houston, though, over UNLV in the opener. Texas Tech hosting Abilene Christian. Abilene Christian's been a solid program in Texas there, but Texas Tech is well coached. Joey McGuire is a very good coach. They've got athletes. Arizona will see them for the first Big 12 home opener on October 5th. I take Texas Tech to roll over Abilene Christian, 32.5-point favorite. I think they cover that fairly easily. Southern Illinois at BYU. This BYU team is kind of up in the air as far as what we're going to see from the Cougars this year. They're only a 14.5-point favorite at home. Southern Illinois, a good program at their level. This is one I would also maybe not touch. If you know a lot more about BYU than I do, then maybe sprinkle it a little bit. But, the total is 49.5. I think with these openers like this and BYU wanting to show things on offense and, maybe pulling out some new wrinkles, 49.5 feels a little low. Any college football game in the 40s, I think it might be worth taking a look at sprinkling the over in that one. So I wouldn't touch BYU minus 14, but give me that over 49.5 for that game. New Mexico at Arizona. Look, if Arizona covers minus 31, this game's going over 15.5. But we'll get to that a little bit later because we'll save that pick for the end because it's what we do. It's the Bleav in Arizona podcast, not the Bleav in Big 12 podcast. But Wyoming, Arizona State, this is a very interesting one. Wyoming breaking in their new head coach after the retirement of Craig Bull following last year's Arizona Bowl win over Toledo. ASU coming into year 2 under Kenny Dillingham, 3-9 in their first year. They'll go with Michigan State transfer Sam Leavitt at quarterback. Look, we'll see if this revamped roster for Arizona State can do anything. It'll be another late game. You could watch it in conjunction with the Arizona game. That one's over on FS1 up in Tempe. Wyoming's a tough opening opponent to go against. And something about these late night games in the desert, those pokes they'll travel well to Phoenix. I know there's a sizable amount of Wyoming alumni in Phoenix as well. I really think this is a tough game to start off for ASU. I think they could squeak it by, but I would take Wyoming +7 in this game. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Pokes come in and win it outright, but I'll take ASU winning the game. But, give me the 7 points with Wyoming, because this one is going to be a close one. All right, we have got 3 major college football ranked matchups on the slate for week 1. The first being a top 15 matchup, 9 a.m. Arizona time start on ABC. Clemson versus Georgia in Atlanta. This Georgia team is loaded, and especially on defense. I would have a hard time seeing Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik consistently move the ball down the field against Georgia. Look, Clemson has a great defensive front, but give me the matchup. Give me the matchup with Georgia's monstrous offensive line, a better quarterback in Carson Beck. They've got studs in the run game, reloaded in the receiver room. This Georgia team is too talented. Give me Georgia -11.5 in this game, because they are going to be a tough out for anybody this year, especially though starting off against a team like Clemson, who is going to be kind of in the thick of it in the ACC race. It's a tough team. They've got some veteran leadership coming back. I think Dabo Swinney's a great coach, but this is not a team I don't think that's equipped to beat Georgia right now. So give me Georgia in that game. All right, what else do we got as far as marquee matchups? Ooh, Miami at Florida. This is going to be an interesting one. A mid-afternoon game in the swamp. That Florida Heat going to take hold of this game. It should be a fun one. Miami 2.5. That's a tough line to lay. Florida is a talented team, but I think a lot of people are underselling Florida this year just because they have by far the toughest schedule in the nation. Miami needs to prove that it can go in there with this new insurgence of talent, with new quarterback Cam Ward, and get a win in the swamp. And I think they will. I'm on Miami -2.5 here. I think they can go in and win this game. It'll be close. It'll be a rock fight, but when it comes down to the quarterback matchup, give me Cam Ward over Graham Mertz. That's as simple as it comes down to. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. Boy, that is a fun matchup to start off, especially down there at Kyle Field. Riley Leonard is the starting quarterback for the Fighting Irish now, and who knows him better than new Texas A&M coach Mike Elko, who's coming over from Duke. So both the quarterback transfer from Duke and the new head coach from Texas A&M from Duke will be facing off against each other in this opener. Kyle Field is always a raucous environment. Night game down there in College Station. I mean, this should be fun, but this Notre Dame defense should be really, really, really tough to score against. The over-under for this one is 47.5. I would even go lower than that, because I think that Riley Leonard, Mike Elko will know how to defend Riley Leonard. I'm not super high on Connor Wigman as Texas A&M's quarterback. It's going to be a tough road environment for Notre Dame, but I think this is the year that Notre Dame takes a step towards being that perennial national title contender. I'm high on head coach Marcus Freeman. I'm high on their defense with Xavier Watts, and I'm high on Riley Leonard and what he could do at quarterback. So take a look at the under here, but Notre Dame money line looks to be a pretty good bet here, because A&M is a 3-point favorite. Notre Dame plus money at +130 to go in there to Kyle Field and take a win in that game. And then Sunday, we've got one more marquee matchup as well. USC at LSU, the first Big Ten game for USC. LSU going to face the Trojans in Vegas. That should be a really fun game too. Look, I'm not as high on LSU as some others are, because I think Garrett Nussmeier is not half the quarterback that Jaden Daniels was. I think LSU, while they always reload at talent, lost a ton last year in Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, a ton from this offense. I think they'll have one of the best offensive lines in college football. But last year they had maybe the single worst defense in college football. Will a new coordinator and new talent change that? Maybe, but I don't know about game one. And I have a real hard time thinking that LSU can consistently get after Miller Moss. I like the USC quarterback. So give me USC to pull off a bit of a shocker here. Right now, they're +155 on the money line. LSU is a 4-point favorite in Vegas there. But true neutral site game, give me USC in a statement victory in week 1 of the season. All right, time now to go to Arizona. Right now, ESPN Bet has the Wildcats as a 30-point favorite over New Mexico. That looks to be about the number, right? But Here's my thought on this game. I think Arizona could race out to a quick lead, but I also think that it knows what it wants from this game. And obviously, the first and foremost priority is a win, but I don't think the Wildcats will be chasing stats. I don't think the Wildcats will be running fast. I think the Wildcats will play the play clock, grind out the run game, and slowly build a lead. I don't think every drive's going to end with a touchdown. If it does, Arizona's covering that 30 easily. But 30 to me is a lot because I've gotten the vibe over the past few weeks that Dino Babers is going to slow down this offense, that Babers is going to rely heavily on the run game against the defense that gave up 362 rush yards last week. I get the feeling that Arizona knows it has to establish the run for those later games in September against Kansas State and Utah. So give me a slower paced game in this one. Arizona wins by 28 points. I can't take the 30. And I think the defense shows a lot, but I think late with some garbage time, I think New Mexico could potentially get to 20. So give me over 58.5 points and give me Arizona by 28. So I don't know how the math works out there off the top of my head, but those are my two picks for the Arizona game. So naturally, of course, they'll be wrong because I am a stronger sportscaster than I am a better. But that's my pick for the Arizona game and my picks for the entire college football slate for the weekend. Time now for the Bear Down Rundown, telling you what else is going on in Arizona athletics as we wrap up the show. And Arizona basketball officially released the 2024-25 roster on social media. So we see now a look at what this Arizona basketball team is. And the unique thing is the number of players the Wildcats are carrying on the roster this year, including 9 walk-ons. Obviously, the Wildcats are loaded with the 3 transfers, bringing back Caleb Love, bringing back Jaden Bradley, bringing back KJ Lewis and Motejas Krivas. Like, Arizona has a squad that can go. 9 walk-ons is really interesting because it includes both Tommy Lloyd's son and athletic director Desiree Reed-Francois' son as well. So this will be a very interesting group to see how they mesh together, to see how they get together in these preseason workouts. They'll start getting together for work in September. We'll have a media day at some point in October where we get a chance to talk and get a feel for the synergy. But, with a big roster like this, you just hope that personalities all mesh together and that, the walk-ons on this roster can provide something strong in practice, maybe break into the rotation at some point in the early non-conference games against some of those mid-major foes. But with this bigger roster, you got to manage a lot of personalities. You got to manage team synergy very well. I'm high on Arizona this year. I think they brought a lot back. I think Tommy Lloyd is one heck of a coach. But we'll see how this roster comes together. You can take a look at the entire roster over on my social media at Matt_Reynoldson. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Bleav in Arizona podcast. Once again, I'm Matt Reynoldson. So excited for game day. Arizona, New Mexico to open the season Saturday night at 7:30 at Arizona Stadium or on ESPN. We'll have full post-game reaction after this one here on the Bleav in Arizona podcast. But reminder to please like and subscribe to the show over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcasts, and the video versions on my YouTube page at Matt_Reynoldson. We'll be Bleaving tomorrow for the season opener. Post-game podcast coming your way then. But until then, have a great weekend. Enjoy college football, and we'll see you next time.